Hey, how's it going? If you enjoy Reddit story narration, please like and subscribe for more.
911 operators, what call scares you till this day? I worked EMS while my friend was dispatched for this call. I was second, so I never got to interact with the person in question, but I listened to the 911 recording after. Got called to do backup for gunshot wound initially. Farm out about 20 to 30 minutes outside of town. Turned out to be a father who recently lost both his parents within the month, didn't want his family to go through with such loss either, decided to kill his family to spare them that same fate. Father killed mom, 2 kids. We get a call from the daughter who's about 13. She's been shot in the head but is still alive and conscious. The call was about 30 minutes long, but the father was in the same room as her and the rest of the recently murdered family members. She was sitting on her bed with a bullet in her head, just saying in the most monotone voice, "I've been shot, my family is dead, my dad has a gun." Just in so much shock that she couldn't express an emotion. You could hear long pauses of silence as the dispatcher tried to get an idea of the situation and how the daughter and dad were just staring each other down for 5 minutes at a time with nothing but breathing to be heard, and the daughter answering the dispatcher's questions. About 30 minutes go by of dispatcher going, "Are you alright? He's still there. He still have the gun," etc. And just monotone responses. You can hear the sound of sirens in the background, and the father leaves the room followed by a gunshot. The dad shot himself and died right as we were pulling up. She ended up living, but had lost every single member of her family that week. I don't know what happened after all that. That call is the reason I never wanted to pursue dispatch ever again. My friend was an absolute champion for how he handled it, but he never wanted to listen to it again. Former 911 operator here. Sometimes the calls that stick with you aren't the most physically traumatic. I once had a call from a 17-year-old kid who came home from a sleepover to find that his mother had moved. Just packed up his sister and everything in the house and left while he was gone with no forwarding address or information. She also turned off his cell phone that morning, so literally the only number he could call was 911. He was trying so hard not to cry and his voice was shaking as he kept apologizing to me for calling 911. He just didn't know what else to do and had no other family. She also took everything, so all he had was a couple of things that he had taken to the friend's house. He told me his 18th birthday was in a couple of weeks and he literally had nothing. The officers that responded took him to a shelter. I think about him often and I hope he's okay. Even if he was a kid who got in trouble or had behavioral issues, I can't imagine coming home to find your mother has abandoned you. I have 2. 1. It was my second week, and I was plugged in with another dispatcher who was handling calls, and I was working the computer and stuff as part of my training. We got a call from a guy in a car, who said that he was in a near accident with another driver, and the other driver was following him and being aggressive. The dispatcher told him to turn around, and look for a well-lit, busy place, like a gas station, to stop, and we would have someone on the way to meet him there. He was shot 5 times while on the phone with us, waiting for the officer to arrive. I found out the next day on the news that the guy flew in from out of town to walk his daughter down the aisle. 2. A month or so later, at the beginning of my shift, I received a call from a very distraught man whose dad had gone missing from his care facility. He had dementia and his dad thought he might be looking for a bar to get a drink. I took his information and got a description, and put out a bolo for him. For these calls, we normally don't find out the outcome. In this case, one of my last calls that same night, was a person calling who found a body on some train tracks, and it turned out to be the same guy I had put out the bolo for. I had to call the deputy who went and took the guy's statement and tell him the news, and he then had to go tell the guy's son. That was a shitty end to the night. Got a 911 call with just screaming. Nothing intelligible, just the loudest screaming you've ever heard. I started officers to the house. Then a kid started yelling that her uncle was trying to kill her, her sister, and her grandmother. She started screaming again, there was a thud, and then no more sound. Officers got there and a man walked out into the driveway and said, "I did it. I killed them." He was mentally ill and lived with his mother. She had been trying to get him committed, with doctors saying he wasn't a danger to himself or others. His 9-year-old twin nieces were visiting from out of state. He snapped that morning. Bludgeoned them all with blunt objects, including a large vase. His mom and one niece died. One twin survived with extensive injuries. It was a horrifying call. I was a 911 operator. When I asked for the address, I got an angry man yelling, "Just get the fucking ambulance here." When I asked what happened, the caller said, "You don't need to fucking know that. I just need to know what happened so I know who to send and what equipment to bring, sir. Just send a goddamn ambulance, my kid's having a seizure. Don't send any fucking police." Don't send police, coming from a caller is basically them telling on themselves. Please send police, because the patient or the EMS crew or both could be in danger. So I passed a note to my partner, who was dispatching, "Send PD, extremely uncooperative caller." I tried my best to get through the rest of the questions. How old is the kid? Are they conscious? Are they breathing? Has the seizing stopped? Etc. I got nothing but verbal abuse. All I knew is that a pediatric patient had a seizure when the call started, there was yelling in the background, and there was some terrible yelling in the foreground. "Put your hands up. Hey, what the fuck, bitch?" And that was it. Police had the caller. The patient ended up being a toddler, who had been beaten to within an inch of their life by that asshole. That was terrifying and sad, and I hugged my own kid a little tighter that night. I'm going to do another one because this thread is a bummer and we all need a laugh. I assure you, not making any of this up. There was a ranch on the edge of the city limits in my area, right by a large park and swimming hole. That ranch had a variety of livestock, but they had an issue with their pygmy goats. Every few weeks we'd get a call because 100 little goats were roving through the park or down the street. One day, I took that call, from a man in the park who had been chased by the goats into a porta potty. He was frantic. Like, screaming. "You need to send animal control out here right now." And all the while I could hear two other prominent, repeated sounds, the whack, of little goat noggins rattling against the plastic porta potty, and bleeding. Malevolent, incessant bleeding. What did those goats want? What would they have done, had he not found refuge? We'll never know.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more Reddit content.